Today on the 10-12 podcast, we're recapping every Big 12 game from Week 4 with Levi Stevenson and Ralph Amsden. Who was the big winners? Who were the big losers? Does the Big 12 run through the state of Utah? A hot take about the Big 12 championship game, and one team that I'm eliminating right now. They're done. They're out of it. Biggest shocking win of the weekend, and so much more coming up on the 10-12 podcast.
Your teen requested a ride, but this time not from you. It's through their Uber teen account. You drive your teenager around, a lot, to their friend Jacob's house, their other friend Jake's house, to James's, to Jaden's, to Jalen's, to...
Mom? This is Jake's house, not Jacob's.
Now with an Uber teen account, your teen can request a ride under your supervision. They'll ride with a highly rated driver, and with live trip tracking, you'll follow along the whole ride to their friends' houses that all sound the same. Add your teen to your Uber account today. See app for details.
Bye, Mom.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Welcome to the 10-12, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We are the flagship show of the 10-12 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. That's TEN, the number 12, the word network.com. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip. Thank you for joining us on this Monday. We are here to recap Week 4 in the Big 12, and what a week it was. What a wild Saturday. Oh man, we got a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. And I am very excited to do it. Joining me today, normally, first half of the show, you hear Andy and you hear Jamie. Jamie is off this week at a WNBA playoff game, and Andy is under the weather. So in their stead, I have 2 guest hosts this week. The host of the Forkcast, the Arizona State show here in the 10-12 Network. Very excited to have him in the network and joining us today. He is Ralph Amsden. Ralph, welcome back, man.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And also, he's been here many times. I'm never sure if it's the right decision or just the decision I had to make. He is one of the hosts of the Nightcap, part of the Wide Right Natty Light collection of shows, which represents Iowa State for us here in the network. He is Levi Stevenson. Levi.
What's going on, Phil?
How you doing, bud?
I'm great. I would say it's 3-0. How could I not be great?
Iowa State is 3-0. Blew out. I said this weird stat that didn't really mean anything, but is also just continues to happen. Of Matt Campbell in his 3rd non-conference games blows teams out.
That third, for whatever reason, that 3rd game, they just kicked the shit out of whoever it is. It was Louisiana Monroe. They beat by 40-something points a few years ago. It's just always whoever it is just whoever's on the unfortunate end of that 3rd game just gets the ass beaten. And
week 1, probably have a close game with an FCS. Iowa, it's Iowa. Week 3, doesn't matter what happened in week 2. We're
total shit can.
Yeah, we're gonna blast you.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, we have 30 minutes to try and get through every game from the weekend, and then we will wrap up the second half of the show by just looking at kind of the Big 12 Conference as a whole. So let's start, fellas. You ready to go? Yes. Locked in?
Sir.
Super. I'm excited. All right. Let's start with I think the shocker of the weekend in the Big 12. BYU 38, Kansas State 9. It's not that BYU won. We talked about the record in games that kick on at or after 6 p.m. on the Picks Pod on Thursday. That record's now 30-6 since 2019. It's that they blew Kansas State out. Wildcats outgained the Cougars by 126, but 3 turnovers, including 2 interceptions and a fumble that BYU returns for a touchdown, was just way too much to overcome. Also, BYU probably had the punt return touchdown of the year in week 4 in the third quarter, which is only made more incredible because it came against Special Teams U, right? The like national leader for the last decade in special teams touchdowns. And that happened to them in this game. Just when it rains, it pours, folks. When it does. Avery Johnson continues to look like a sophomore in his first year as a starter, and that's fine, but this was by far his worst appearance. That's totally understandable. It's okay. It's hard to go to Provo and play. You do have to wonder, and I think at this point we can make this fact, Kansas State and Kansas have one thing in common this season. Replacing an OC and a quarterback coach is not always as easy as you think it is going to be. Maybe just about the turnovers. I get the feeling Kansas State's going to be a high variance home versus road team moving forward this season. Something to keep an eye on, especially if you want to put any money down. We mentioned it on the Thursday pick spot again. Kansas State's defense doesn't travel as well as people think it does. It's great at home. Look out OSU. But on the road, wasn't quite up to the task. BYU fans, just enjoy it. 4-0 start. What is it? Is it the Taylor Swift line? I think that our BYU showed feel like 22 because 2022 they had a great season. Ha! That's for you youths and Swifties that listen to the show. BYU fans, enjoy defensive coordinator Jay Hill while he's in Provo. He has been an absolute slam dunk, home run, all other sport metaphors higher at DC. BYU's defense has been vastly improved from last year. I still can't decide if it's actually as good as it has seemed, but it has been really good. He will be a head coach sooner rather than later, but he's been, that's a fantastic hire. Ralph, I don't know how much of this game you're able to watch, but what were your thoughts and takeaways from it?
Well, I mean, Kansas State marching, they have the opportunity to make it, at the very least, a one-score game, at most a 17-13, 17-14 game. And you get an interception from Avery Johnson. And Manny Wilkins at Arizona State used to call it a stop in a bucket. And so when you're in the middle of the third quarter, BYU's held you without a touchdown anyway. And then it's just easy for them to go out and run a misdirection slant for a touchdown. It definitely had to feel like it just wasn't Kansas State's night. I don't like how this makes Kansas State look soft. When the truth of the matter is they're not firing on all cylinders. But I will say Arizona fans, they left week 2 saying we lost to a bad team. That was the consensus amongst Arizona fans is we got blown out by a bad team. So what does that make us? And they were having to do a lot of looking in the mirror and there's people pointing to the rankings and saying, no, Kansas State's fine. They're favored in the conference. And Arizona fans were convinced that they were going to get exposed this week. When it ended up working out that way, it's hard to feel like everything's not just topsy-turvy, especially with Oklahoma State going down. So it's what everybody said it was going to be. It's anyone's conference. But when you have BYU looking this good after last year, just not really getting what they needed out of Keaton Slovis, not like the quarterback play in this game was great. But it makes Kansas State look fatally flawed. And they can't afford to do this again if they're going to compete for the conference title.
Levi?
I think what we saw this game, Kansas State so far this season, I think a few of the fears, like, because obviously Kansas State had tons and tons of like, they're going to be one of the two, they're one of the two contenders for the Big 12 title, potentially a playoff team, all this, whatever. And then a lot of it was on the basis of Avery Johnson being a very good quarterback. I think what we've seen so far out of him and of the Kansas State defense is that a few of the fears of, okay, well, if he's not going to do this, why is that going to be? I think those fears are starting to be realized. Avery Johnson right now is not a great decision maker. He's not a particularly accurate thrower of the football. He can run, no doubt about it. We knew he is good at what we knew he was good at. Beyond that, right now, he does not look like a passer that can win a game with his arm. And we saw against BYU where Kansas State outgains them. I mean, the offense largely outplays BYU, but he can't stop turning the ball over, and that ends up with short fields for BYU, and BYU turns it into a not even close game. So right now, Kansas State's best option at quarterback is a turnover machine when he's throwing the ball, and they're going to have to use with his legs, which even with good running quarterbacks that are used to running, at that point, you start worrying about a durability concern. So we'll see what that looks like going forward down the line. And then we also, another part of the Kansas State defense that we saw it crop up against Tulane, and now we saw it a little bit against BYU, is their secondary is not good. It struggles badly in deep coverage. They have a tendency to blow coverages deep down the field. And I think they can still be a good team. Like the front seven for Kansas State is still good. They can still run the ball. They've still got Avery Johnson. They've still got Giddens, and they've got plenty of guys that can run the ball for them. However, right now they are vulnerable on offense in the passing game and on defense in the deep passing game, especially. And that's not easy to overcome. I mean, at that point, you're playing Iowa football, which they're famous for not being able to come back. So like in a game like this, where now they're behind and you're relying on Avery Johnson to bring you back with his arm. Right now, if you're a Kansas State fan, you probably don't love that. If you have to win a game if you have to win the game throwing the ball.
It is going to be interesting. Maybe it's just that Tulane and BYU are the two best teams they faced. No shot at Arizona. Or, like I said, I'm really curious about Kansas State at home versus on the road. Because at home, they've been awesome.
Yeah.
Blew out UT Martin 41-6. Blew out Arizona 31-7. On the road, struggled to beat Tulane. Probably shouldn't have won that game if certain call didn't go that way. Blasted by BYU at night. I mean, you can say that the road schedule is not that daunting. Road game at Colorado, road game at Houston, road game in Iowa State. Iowa State I excluded from that list. But like, if that's what they're going to play like on the road,
but even Colorado's
going to win a lot of games.
Colorado's got the playmakers to beat them at home.
They've got to go on the road to Morgantown too, and so they're not out of this, and I'm not going to say they're out of it. There is a team that lost on Saturday I'm going to say is out of the Big 12 title game race, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I don't think Kansas State's out of it, but I don't like the offensive game plan. It seems like they're still being conservative, and this doesn't feel like the non-con's over. So I just don't. I don't know if they don't trust Avery, and I mean, after Saturday's performance, you kind of get an idea of why. We talk a lot about Kansas State. Again, a huge props to BYU for the performance in this game. Yeah, you had special teams touchdown, a fumble return touchdown, 2 scores after interceptions. But like BYU, for the expectation of them being one of the bottom feeders in the Big 12, this is a really impressive start. And we're going to talk about what happened at TCU. But reminder, they went on the road to beat SMU. Now they've got this win over Kansas State. They are ranked right now, and they should be. They've had a really, really impressive start to the season. You've got to be psyched if you're a BYU fan and say, like, we got to feel good about getting to a bowl game with 4 wins already and 8 left to go. Just how high can this BYU team rise? It's going to be fun to watch as the season progresses. Speaking of teams out of the state of Utah 22, Oklahoma State 19. Don't let the final score fool you, folks. I got home. My parents are here this weekend. My mom was like, they only lost by 3. I was like, nah. Sometimes final scores, they can fool you into thinking that a game was close when it was not. Utah's defense absolutely dominated this game. What an absolutely atrocious performance by the Oklahoma State offense. Yeah, the defense had a few lapses. They let a running back have like 5 guys not tackle him. You gave up the touchdown in the 4th quarter to Brent Keithy, where the defender just like fell down or whatever. You had some defensive lapses. That's going to happen. This defense isn't perfect. But they are not to blame for this one. Not when they're on the field for almost 3 times as long as the offense held the ball. It was 42-26, like 42 minutes and 26 seconds of game clock. The defense was on the ball in this game. That is absolutely on the offense, and that is atrocious. Alan Bowman wasn't good. He wasn't. But Gundy's decision at the half to bench him for Rangel, only to bring Bowman back later and say, well, he wasn't hurt. What? Oh, by the way, Bowman's the guy moving forward. What? We just thought he needed to cool heads and see if we could get a spark. With Rangel? You put him in that position? What? What the hell decision was that? But all that pales into comparison to the fact that you have the most experienced offensive line in college football history, and you still can't run the ball. The non-conference, some fans being like, well, they're kind of hiding stuff. Nope, they can't run the ball. You can't run the ball. You can't run the ball. You have Ollie Gordon. You cannot run the ball. Shout out to Mike Harris on Twitter, is at the Mike Harris. Oklahoma State's average rushing yards per game right now, 96.3, is not only bad, it is potentially historically bad. It barely outpaces the worst per game rushing average in OSU history since 1956 of 93.6 yards per game back in 2001. It's bad. You have Ollie Gordon. Like, I get it. You lost some tight ends that were really important last year to helping with the run game. This is a massive indictment on Gundy continuing to keep his fishing buddy, Casey Dunn, as the offensive coordinator. Let's just see what happens. Full props to Utah's defense. They played an absolutely incredible game. No Cam Rising, Isaac Wilson's the quarterback. Doesn't matter. Utah gets the win. OSU got outcoached. Absolutely. I'm eliminating Oklahoma State from the Big 12 title contention. I'm just doing it. You can't run the ball. You're not winning. You're not going to win enough games to get to Arlington. It's not going to happen because you're going to have at least one, if not two more Allen Bowman performances like this. I understand Utah's probably the best defense Oklahoma State will face all season. Don't care. You're not getting to Arlington. The season is just, let's get to see if we can keep the bowl streak going. They're not going. Fellas, I'll get your thoughts on this game, but also, no, I'll save that one for the second half of the show. Ralph, I don't know how much of this one you got to see, but thoughts on Utah and Oklahoma State.
Welcome to the Utah experience. I've been dealing with this for the majority of the last 2 decades. I'm from Wyoming, had to deal with them in the Mountain West, made their way over to the Pac-12. Took them about 8-9 years to figure it out. They were an average road team in the Pac-12, and I think that's probably what surprised me most about this game. 20 of their 23 losses since 2018 have come away from Salt Lake City. They are tough. They make everything ugly. They make everything frustrating. But typically on the road against ranked teams, it takes them a minute. They didn't do anything in LA for about 7.5 years before they finally started to figure it out, beat USC 4 times in a row, went down, beat UCLA in LA. This is a game where I picked Oklahoma State on the basis that Utah's like AI. It learns, but it's not there right away. And I knew based on their history of just straight up dishonesty and injury cover-ups that you probably weren't going to have a healthy Cam Rising going into this game. And so it made sense to me. And honestly, I think I bought into Allen Bowman a little bit too much. I know that he doesn't throw touchdowns. I know he turns the ball over a lot. But I think, what is it, like 7, 8, 300-yard games since October of last year? So I figured maybe they'd have the ability to take advantage of the fact that Utah is going to have a hard time scoring, and they'd squeak this one out at home. And about 3/4 of the way through, I was feeling, and I've had this reaction to a lot of Pac-12 games, I was feeling bad for the opponent because it's just, they are so disciplined. They are so well coached. They are so physical. You just can't make mistakes. You can't afford to. And it just seemed like more of the same for me.
Yeah, I only got to see probably the second half of the third quarter through part of the fourth quarter. And honestly, I turned it off because it was like 16-3, and I was like, guys. And it was 16-3, and I was watching what was happening. I was like, this game's over. And but for your Oklahoma State, like you said, they've got it. If they can't get Allen Bowman to do something, they have to get Ollie Gordon something. I don't know if you need to do what Iowa State would do with Breece Hall and just find bodies to throw in front of people and hope he can make something out of something. I don't know if that's the game plan or what, but Oklahoma State's got to get they got to get something together. But I'm more interested, I think, in talking about Utah because while their defense was very good, like you said, it was against an Oklahoma State team that is really struggling to move the ball right now. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but really, I mean, if you're Utah, you're basically daring Allen Bowman to throw at you, essentially.
if you're every team left on the schedule, you're daring.
Right.
Allen.
So
that's going to be every defense's game plan is like, we're not going to let Ollie run on us.
Right. So if you like from outside looking in, Utah's game plan on defense was pretty simple. Actually, it's bottle up Ollie Gordon, and if Alan Bowman beats you, then I guess it is what it is, I guess. But for Utah, it's a fairly simple game plan. So a good defense slowing down a team that's struggling to move the ball isn't as impressive to me, I guess. But what I think we did see with Utah, though, is that without Cam Rising, they weren't lighting up the scoreboard or anything like that. I mean, they're no offensive juggernaut with Cam Rising out. I mean, even with Cam Rising in the game, they're not. But if Cam Rising's not in the game, I think what we saw was that Utah is just not going to put a lot of points on the board if Cam Rising's not in the game. And given Cam Rising's injury history, at this point, who knows how many games he's going to play? And by the end of the season, when their schedule starts toughening up, and Iowa State comes to town at the last game of the season, what does Cam Rising look like then? Is he healthy? And then what can Utah do later as the season go down? I think we saw that Utah's big vulnerability right now is that they are relying heavily on Cam Rising, and if he's not there, they are vulnerable to be picked off, especially away from Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I think that Baylor game was a perfect example of first half Cam Rising, that Utah just looked like an offensive juggernaut, and then Cam Rising went out and they didn't do anything. And again, Oklahoma State's defense did its job on Saturday. They did everything they could. They got 2 interceptions. They did everything they could to keep Oklahoma State in that game, and the offense gave them nothing. If it's Isaac Wilson for the season, it's going to be very dependent upon how well can the Utah defense play. And guess what? They're going to face some offenses that can actually run the ball. Might be, do more things and just hope Alan Bowman can execute.
Yeah,
so,
that's really my point. Is I would like to see Utah play a team that can both run and pass. Teams that are a little bit more dynamic offensively. I would be curious to see what Utah does against them versus Oklahoma State trying to just ram Ollie Gordon down your throat for 2 hours.
We're going to have some off-season conversations about Oklahoma State quarterbacks and the future there. We'll save that for a later date. West Virginia 32, Kansas 28 for the 4th straight week. Kansas blows a 4th straight? I don't know. Kansas blows a 4th quarter lead. Again. Rinse, repeat, recycle. Just, it's a scheduled tweet. The Jayhawks were up 28-17 with 5:39 left. I understand about the weather delay, and weather delays absolutely mess with things. Okay, 2nd straight week, West Virginia's got to deal with a weather delay. But y'all, this is all about Jeff Grimes as an offensive coordinator replacing Andy Kotelnicki, who I thought would be a step down, but has been far worse than even I thought it would be. And I think a lot of this comes into the lack of development and regression of Jalen Daniels, who has been bad. He has been bad. We are through 4 games this season. He's thrown 7 interceptions. His QBR is the lowest of his career outside of 2020, but he was a true freshman. It's not good. I mean, at least I don't necessarily have to blame him for giving the game away by throwing interceptions late. He threw 1 in the game early on, and it didn't lead to any points. But I just look at this and go, what? This is... I don't think there's a team that's having a more disappointing season at this point in the Big 12 than Kansas. The way this season is going. How do you trust this team to get to bowl eligibility? I am very concerned about Kansas, and I think you're really having buyer's remorse if you're Lance Leipold on your OC quarterback hires. I don't think Grimes is working out. Unless someone's got something like no, yada yada yada. Somebody smarter than me wants to come and tell me no, everything's great. You're just not seeing it. I don't see it. You're right. I don't. As for West Virginia, congrats on the win. It was a nice win. Come from behind after you blew a lead last week to Pitt. To come from behind and beat Kansas, that's got to feel a little bit good. That'll keep Neil Brown's seat from at least not getting warmer. But I think at this point, it's just a nice win. It's a good win. Go listen to Raspy Voice Kids. Their recap is awesome as always. Ralph, thoughts on this one?
I muted myself. I apologize. I don't think that Jalen Daniels has ever. I mean, I guess you could say September of 2022. 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yeah, he had in those 3 games almost 400 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. September of 2022. That's essentially what we've based all of our hopes on for years now. And he is a dynamic quarterback. But outside of that month, and even in that month, you're talking about being at Houston, the offense dropping 50, he threw for 158 yards. Or going into overtime at West Virginia, dropping 55, and he threw for 219 and had 18 completions. He's never shown, outside of a triple overtime game against Arkansas, that you could put the game on his arm. And he's in a position right now where he's playing for his future, and it's got to be his priority to show that he can do the one thing that would have him translate to the next level. His priorities are divided right now. It's not just win college football games, but it's prove that you can look like more than a college quarterback, more than a Pat White or something along those lines. And I don't think that bodes well for Kansas overall. Kansas is doing some incredible things on the recruiting trail, but it's still a renovation. Like it's still like they've got the porch built, outside of the house is painted nice. Inside, there's still a lot to be done. And this is not a team that has a ton of depth. It's not a team that has a lot of experience handling adversity very well. And what Lance Leopold has done has always been judged against what they were for a 13, 14-year period, where they went, I think there was one stretch where they were 10-70 in the late 2010s. And so, we're judging a lot of what he's doing against what that school has been. And I always thought it was cool that he didn't take all that heat that was on him and go cash in somewhere else. But we can't be naive to the fact that it's going to be a lot closer to an Iowa State multi-year culture build than it is just going to be Lance Leopold is the future. Therefore, we win 10 games.
Levi?
Yeah, like for West Virginia, like you said, if you were a West Virginia, if you were just looking in on West Virginia social media on Saturday while they were playing the game, you would be forgiven for believing that West Virginia lost by 40 because they were not happy. And frankly, from what I've seen, they haven't been happy in a single game this season yet. But that's kind of besides the point. They got a good win. I don't know what you're going to do with it. If you turn it into something good and Neil Brown can keep his job, great. Or not, I don't know. It seems like West Virginia fans are, I don't know, on the fence about that. But Kansas, I think, is the bigger talking point here, like you guys have both alluded to. Jalen Daniels in his career has pretty much he's made an entire reputation out of torching bad teams. Aside, like you said, that Arkansas bowl game where he went off is basically the only time he's had a good game against a good team. If you look like, he's off to a torrid start last year, when he was starting to get like early Heisman contention, but it was against Illinois, Nevada, and BYU, who was very bad last year. And 2022, he had that stretch at the beginning of the season, but they played Tennessee Tech, a bad West Virginia team, a bad Houston team, and a bad Duke team. And we're going here. All I'm seeing right now is we're seeing the Jalen Daniels we've always seen against good teams, which is a mediocre quarterback that's turnover prone. So, and like you said, Phillip, the offensive coordinator's hire hasn't worked. Jeff Grimes has been fired from virtually every job he's ever had. At Baylor, he didn't work. I think he was at Utah State before that, question mark.
No, he got poached from BYU.
He got poached from BYU. But it didn't work at Baylor. I'm not sure why Kansas thought it would work at Kansas. I don't understand the logic behind that, but that's Lance Leipold's decision, and he's coaching college football, and I'm not. But right now Kansas has a lot of issues to work with because the hope was that they could put together another duplicate of 2023 on the backs of a high flying offense that was going to try to win games 50-40. like to like the old 2013-14 Big 12 years. But right now that's not happening. And I'm not sure what the path forward looks like for them, but Jalen Daniels has to be better. If Kansas is going to try to be a 7-8 win football team, Jalen Daniels has to be much, much better.
It's wild to say Kansas' defense is keeping them in games, and the offense is letting them down week after week after week. Texas Tech 30, Arizona State 22. Credit to Texas Tech. It seems like they've maybe figured some things out, especially on defense, where, look, the injuries. We've talked about this week in and week out. Like, I don't know who's actually playing linebacker. It's probably just some guys they grabbed out of the crowd off the street in an alleyway because there's like no healthy linebackers. But it seems like they're kind of figuring some things out after the last 2 weeks. I'm going to pitch this one over to Ralph as our resident Arizona State fan and podcast host. Look, I love the ASU story. I still have really high hopes for them this season. I think bowl game is absolutely going to happen. It's a fun team. What were your thoughts and takeaways from ASU and Texas Tech on Saturday?
I think Texas Tech's an awesome environment, and I love the game plan, the scripted drive that they had to start the game. They got a little boost from Arizona State kicking the ball off out of bounds right away, but I love that scripted drive to start the game. Baron Morton's a little bit of a wild boy under pressure, and so to make sure that he was making some quick decisions, and you got that Arizona State defense off guard. I just thought I thought the world of the way that drive was scripted, the way it was constructed, and then Arizona State goes out and makes an immediate mistake, getting called for a unnecessary roughness on a touchback, which is new. Never seen anything like that before, and then Sam Levitt throws an interception and again stop in a bucket. So it's 14-0 at that point. And then it just becomes a grind. Arizona State's defense tries to get serious, step up. They outscore Texas Tech 22 to 16 the rest of the way, but miss several opportunities. Turn the ball over on downs on 4th down with some absolutely crazy, risky behavior from Kenny Dillingham, who you can tell was just raised playing NCAA like the rest of us. The man went deep on 4th and 1 from his own territory for the second time in his tenure. And because Sam Levitt's not super accurate and he short hopped it, it drew a PI flag. But I think Texas Tech was the better team. I don't think it was that bad of a loss. I love the way that Texas Tech leaned on the run game, even though it wasn't super successful, in order to keep Arizona State at arm's length. Defensively, I think Arizona State probably did Texas Tech some favors, but when you're that banged up, you'll take any favor you can get. And then on Arizona State's end, it's very possible that the decision that they're making at quarterback right now is for the future, but it didn't give them the best chance to win yesterday. The young kid is very risky in everything he does. He took probably 10 hits that will have him very, very sore this week. And then his accuracy is not great. So for the entire offense to have to lean on Cam Scattaboo is very tough because some teams will start to stack the box. Their first 3 opponents didn't. And then I would say the other thing is 33 wide receiver receptions through 4 weeks is terrible. Like Travis Hunter has 36. So not getting the ball to your receivers is not a recipe for winning football. But again, I thought Texas Tech was a better team. I think Baron Morton's a lot of fun, makes wild decisions under pressure. But if they can keep him upright, if they can get people biting on those little play action fakes and hit people on those short crossing routes or dink the ball over some linebacker heads, I mean, we get back to like the B.J. Simmons, Cliff Kingsbury 5,000-yard passing season. So even though they only got 200 in this game, it felt like a lot more. Because they were able to have so much success in that first quarter.
It's Morton time, folks. It's Morton time in Lubbock. Levi.
I unfortunately did not get to watch this game, but it seems like it just listen to just kind of how the game played out a little bit and looking through some of the box scores. Like Texas Tech has been another one that, short of Kansas, would have prior to this have been maybe the most disappointing team in the Big 12 so far. So them picking up a win in this and the defense showing up a little bit, I think bodes well for them, maybe figuring something out going forward. I don't know how much it means. I'm not sure what Texas Tech's schedule looks like for the next few games, but it'd be interesting to see. Arizona State's who's Arizona State have next week?
Bye and then Kansas.
Bye and then Kansas. Well, Kansas might be an opportunity for Arizona. Is it at Kansas or is it home?
In Tempe.
So if it's in Tempe, that might be an opportunity for Arizona State to pick off another win there. Be interesting to see those two, because I would think it's fair to describe both of those teams as they're building for down the road type of thing. Like I don't think either team right now has aspirations of winning the conference necessarily, but it's interesting to me that both teams that, like I said, are building, have good young pieces, and can build around, played a nice close game there too, and both have opportunities to do more going forward.
A couple games I'm going to run through real quick. Cincinnati 34, Houston 0. Cincinnati gets their first ever Big 12 home win. There's a fun stat for you. Houston turned the ball over twice, had 2 turnovers on down, a missed field goal, and only made it to the red zone twice. Cincinnati dominated this game. It was as close as the score indicated. Cincinnati quarterback Brendan Sorsby has now thrown 118 consecutive passes without an interception. Make sure you check out Scott and Holman podcast for Houston coverage and Viva La Cats for Cincinnati here on the network. Iowa State 52, Arizona State 7. Like we said, always bet on Iowa State. Sorry, Arkansas State. Yeah.
Took 2 losses last week.
Always bet on Iowa State in their third non-conference game. The Cyclones held Arkansas State to 182 yards of offense total. Bravo, Iowa State. Conference play begins this week, something we'll probably talk about here in a minute. Okay. Colorado 38, Baylor 31 in overtime. Baylor blew this game. A, they went conservative on offense the second half. And B, you gave up the Hail Mary. And not just that you gave up the Hail Mary. A, was it Victory Cigar? Was the name of that play that they ran? That Colorado ran to take the game to overtime? Woof. What was the defense on that Hail Mary? What were the DBs doing? That was atrocious defense. Your head coach took over the defensive play calling. And yet, I don't think I've ever seen a Hail Mary that looked less lucky when the offense caught the ball than that one. I don't think I've ever seen a more poorly defended Hail Mary than that. Period. In a story. Awful coverage.
It's so funny that Dave Aranda felt the need to tell everybody in the press conference that play was named Victory Cigar. Why would you tell people that?
why? I mean, look, that's a man who knows that his grave has already been dug, and
he had nothing to lose.
What are they going to do? Fire me now? Like, all right, whatever. It's time to start talking coaching candidates in Waco. GJ Kinney. As for Colorado, nice win for the Buffs. Travis Hunter made the game-winning play in this game in OT. He is the player who is the least talked about, who deserves way more conversation on the national stage for everything he does for Colorado. Like every year, it's like, no, he's going to run his team. He's going to run his team. He just keeps making plays on both sides of the ball. He is a machine. He is a robot. He is from another planet. End of story, period. When you see Heisman lists and he's not one of the top 3, this is why the Heisman's dumb. Because Colorado's, there is not a more dynamic player, athlete, anything in college football right now to me than Travis Hunter. And the guy, like, just watch Colorado to watch Travis Hunter. Shador, fine, cool, whatever. Dion doing something, Dion, cool, whatever. Just watch Travis Hunter. Like, just enjoy watching somebody who's that skilled and gifted. Unless you're a Florida State fan, because I know that hurts your feelings.
The bummer with Travis Hunter is he's going to have the Troy Davis problem, where he's going to be the best player in college football, but he's going to play for a terrible team, and he's not going to get the Heisman because of it.
No, he's not. He should. He absolutely should. Like, I don't. I'm sorry. If Colorado gets to 6 wins, give that man the Heisman. Just in period.
The good news is he'll probably be the number 1 pick in the draft, so he can make his money in the NFL.
He should.
He should be.
The problem is, like, what? Oh, we're going. I don't care.
Yeah.
Do you play? Does he play? wide receiver, or does he play DB?
I think he's a corner. I think he's probably a corner in the NFL. I think.
I kind of do too.
I think he'll make more money as a corner in the NFL. He's a little, maybe a shade undersized at receiver, but
you've got small receivers.
You do you look like Tank Dell in Houston's not very big and stuff like there's
Puka Nacua.
Right. Yeah. There's plenty of guys that like, I think he can be good at either one. I think his ceiling's probably higher at corner, but I think he'd be good. He'd probably be plenty good. He could be a number one receiver for a team that knows how to throw the ball to him.
Yes. That has a quarterback.
Yeah.
Ralph, what are your thoughts, man?
I think, well, on Travis Hunter, he's the best player in college football. It's not close. There's this myth that specialization is necessary. When you're the best player in the country as a high schooler and you're dominating on both sides of the ball, it translates. There was Dylan Raiola's number one receiver last year in Buford, Georgia, was also a 5-star safety. He could have come in and done the same thing, not necessarily had a similar impact because he's not as dynamic. But Travis Hunter, you look at players that have had offensive packages because of the level of athleticism that they bring. Probably the most recent one is Patrick Peterson. And so, there is a precedent for it. There is a precedent for doing both. But it's the way NFL teams are run, the way that meetings are run, the way that practices are run, the way that CBA is designed. It's going to create a situation in which he has to get serious and he has to choose. And that's no fun. And I hate that. But as far as right now, he's the best player on the field at all times. The reason that Hail Mary worked is because he was used as a decoy. And who do they have on the other side of the field? A receiver who transferred in from FAU with 252 catches to his name. So they have options. Shedeur is special. He's a very special quarterback. He's fun to not like, but the one thing that kind of I judge whether or not I'm going to take somebody seriously is, can you get past the get off my lawn instincts when it comes to Shedeur and just admit that this is probably, if not the most talented passer, worthy of top 3 consideration. And so he was never shook. The Hail Mary shouldn't have even been a play, by the way, should not have, because on the play before, Shedeur from the same distance hit an open receiver in the hands and the ball was dropped. So Hail Mary never should have happened ever. Like, the fact that we're even talking about it is because Shedeur had to do that twice. And the message I would give to Baylor is interfere. Just interfere. You did it 2 plays before that. You held every single receiver. It got flagged. If you're in a situation where time's running out and you feel like you might get beat, trip the dude. It's only 15 yards. It's not a spot foul. You put them right back into a situation where it's even shorter of a field, and then you sick the dogs against an offensive line that hasn't shown that it can pass block. So you didn't even need a play design. You just needed to trip every single wide receiver as they were running down the field and get reset. They would have had a harder time within the 30-yard line than they did from where they were at. And that's insane to me.
Well, the funny thing with the interfere with them, though, is that you have to be close enough to the receiver to interfere with them. And Baylor was not close enough to interfere with them. They were standing 15 yards away from the receiver.
Yeah, well, and the kind of the way that the Hail Mary broke was that you had a bracketed situation, and Wester on the throw slipped out from the underneath coverage, and he did have the opportunity to just shove him out of bounds, do anything, because when the ball was in the air, they were together. And so it's incredibly frustrating. Baylor never should have been in that situation. You could tell they were just shell-shocked going into overtime. And it's a credit to Colorado, man. People really, really want this team to fail very badly. And they always find a way to make things that probably shouldn't have even been a game, but they pulled it out. So kudos to them.
Very nice. All right. SMU 66, TCU 42. SMU had a 51-yard fumble return touchdown, a 69 nice-yard punt return touchdown, and a 60-yard pick six. Take all that away. Take all that wild craziness away. TCU still loses this game. What on earth was that? What on earth, TCU, was that performance? Again, BYU went into Dallas and won. If it weren't for Houston, there's a now and is TCU? No, they're not the worst team in the Big 12. But man, I don't like what I have seen from TCU at this point. Like, just don't. That was an atrocious performance. Just period. End of story. I understand things went SMU's way, like we just said, but like that was an absolutely atrocious performance from TCU. It's hard if you're a TCU fan to look at that and go, like, Sonny Dykes. I hope you've got a little bit of magic left, because it's real weird in Fort Worth right now, and not in a good way. Ralph?
Yeah, this is the third year of the Sonny Dykes experience at TCU. Want to remind everybody that the third year of the Sonny Dykes experience at Cal included, on the one hand, Jared Goff, and on the other hand, the number 129 ranked defense in all of college football. This is just history repeating itself. There is not a lot of emphasis on it's just do whatever it takes to get the ball back in the offense's hands. That's it. And I know there's this old like Mike D'Antoni saying from the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Sun, whoever has more points at the end of the game had the better defense. That's not true in football. But he tries to act as if it is, and like just getting himself ejected against his old team, giving up 66 against a team that just offensively looked putrid. I mean, I'm still thinking about their game against Nevada and how hard it was for Preston Stone to mentally check into that game until the very end. And for that team to turn around and score 66 on TCU, it feels like 2015 Cal all over again. I'm gonna read you some totals. They gave up 44 at Oregon, 40 at UCLA, 46 against Arizona State, 44 against Texas, and 36 in their bowl game versus Air Force. They look worse now than that Cal team did.
I'm not gonna have an issue too much of a scathing indictment at TCU because Melissa Treewasser and Jamie Plunk are good friends of mine. But
yeah, good people.
That said, what I will say about TCU is whatever mojo that TCU had during the Gary Patterson era, especially like in that 2014 to 2019 era, whatever mojo they had is gone. It's completely gone. And it's probably important to remember that Sonny Dykes' 2022 campaign was virtually entirely Gary Patterson's roster. And it was on the backs of Max Duggan, who had been in Gary Patterson's system forever. Sonny Dykes took what Gary Patterson already had and changed it around a little bit and had a magical season. But winning in the first year with somebody else's players is not remotely the same as winning in your third year with your own guys. And right now, if you look at TCU's, they can make the NIL happen. They've got the money to do kind of what they want, and they're in one of the best recruiting hotbeds in the country. There's no reason that TCU should not be what Gary Patterson had them as, which is a Big 12 contender, and in this day and age, a playoff contender on a year in and year out. But there is no reason that TCU should not be a 9, 10, 11 win football team every single season. There's no reason. But right now, that program has no momentum. There's no quarterback. There's no defense. It's just they're kind of treading water right now, and it sucks because TCU is has been a fun program to follow since they got to the Big 12. I don't know what the path forward looks like for that team right now, especially with the defense just not. Because it's not like you're looking at the defense like, oh, a couple things needed to go their way, and they're really better than they look. They're not. They're just not. It's a bad defense, and the run and the offense. They're putting points on the board, but I think it's partly because SMU gave them so many possessions because they scored so many points. I don't know what the path forward looks like for TCU. I mean, I'm assuming Sonny Dykes' buyout right now is $200 trillion, but at a certain point, you got to really start looking at this thing and like, I don't know what the fix is for TCU here, but it's not a 1 year thing. It's not a this year thing. It's probably not a 1 year thing. It's probably like a 2 or 3 year thing to fix this.
Yeah. It's something to keep an eye on. It is.
Frankly,
he had a ton of goodwill. He had a ton of goodwill after year one, and I think he burned a lot of that by bringing on a Bryles to the coaching staff.
And then on Saturday he got ejected from the game right after halftime. What are you doing? Like, you're losing this game, dude.
Yeah. One thing that won't get you ejected is by showing up to the game in some apparel from Charlie Hustle. Sponsors here in the 1012 podcast and for the entire 1012 network. Charlie Hustle wants you to be the best drafts fan this season and the most comfortable fan. Look, whether the heat's going to keep on where you are or the cool fall temps are finally going to arrive, Charlie Hustle has everything you need to cheer your team on or to absorb the tears as you have to watch your team only score 3 points through 3 quarters. Thank you, Charlie Hustle, for my shirt on Saturday. That was very helpful. Look, it's great stuff. They love the Big 12. That's why they have great Big 12 gear. They've got a bunch of stuff that's on sale. And if you don't find something on sale, that's okay. Put it in your cart anyways and use that promo code 101215, TEN1215. It gets you 15% off all non-sale items. Love Charlie Hustle. We thank you so much for being sponsors here and all the work you do, creating great stuff for the Big 12. Just go to the website, charliehustle.com. Promo code 101215, 15% off all non-sale items. Be the best dressed, be the most comfortable fan this college football season. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is,
"Thank you for calling. Please listen to your list of 46 possible service options."
Which is why when you choose USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable. 24/7 online service for claims, access to roadside assistance, and more. All at the touch of a button. Start getting the service you deserve. Get a quote today. Ability to receive a quote depends on membership eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
All right. A couple of big topics to hit here. Number one, boys, I got to ask you this question. Does the Big 12 run through the state of Utah this year?
I don't want that to be the case. I mean, together they make a complete team, but BYU is not offensively dynamic enough for me to look at the Big 12 and say, look at this league full of people that can throw for 300 yards, rush for 300 yards, that can drop 50 in a game regularly. And to say that BYU belongs in that conversation when the running game doesn't look good, Jake Retzlaff doesn't look ready. I think they had one explosive play out of a wide receiver in a game where they scored 38 against Kansas State. I don't know. To me, they're not dynamic enough on offense for me to say that this team is dependable. And then you look at Utah. I've watched Utah run out of gas a few times in the Pac-12, but when it was sequestered to north-south, it got to the point where, because of some stuff that was going on with USC, because of scandals at Arizona and Arizona State, and whatever Chip Kelly was doing at UCLA with his inability to recruit, Utah just took over. Yeah. Doing sleep studies and feeding kids lobster, but he doesn't, he was something else.
Doing everything but winning football games.
Yes. But yeah, you look at Utah and you say, yeah, if healthy, why not? They have a 23-year-old running back, 23-year-old tight end, 25-year-old quarterback. Offensive line averages 6'5", 315. Dorian Singer is a hell of a pickup at receiver. And then the defense is just, Morgan Scalley and that defensive staff, they've been together for over a decade. They're monsters. And so with Utah, it's like, yeah, if healthy, why not?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I look at BYU, and they're having a great season so far, which is they needed it after last season where they took a lot of beatings, and most people thought Kalani Sitake was this close to getting fired. But how real are they as a Big 12 contender? I don't know. They haven't, they played SMU, who's been okay, I guess. I mean, they looked fine against TCU, but they haven't. Kansas State walloping Kansas State at home is a great win. I'm not taking that away from that at all. That's a great win, no doubt about it. I'm gonna need to see more of BYU for the next few games. Like once we get to week 8, they've played 8 games. Are they 6-2? If they're 6-2 by week 8, I'm like, okay, they can be a contender, near the top or something like that. If they're 5-3 or 4-4 or something like that after week 8, then I think it's more like, okay, good start to the season, still got some building to do. Because like you said, I don't think Jake Retzlaff is setting the world on fire or anything like that. I think they were the beneficiary against Kansas State of some really, really bad turnovers by Avery Johnson, and Kansas State just being just committing way too many blunders on and hurting themselves too much. But I mean, if you look at that, like you said, Kansas State outgained BYU by 150 yards, and so I mean, for all intents and purposes, Kansas State's offense outplayed BYU's pretty significantly. But BYU was able to take advantage of a weird special teams play and turnovers and things like that, which can inflate the final score or really change it, in favor of the team that's benefiting. And when BYU is the sole beneficiary of basically every bad thing that happens in the game, that can lead to a lopsided score. So BYU, it's kind of a wait and see. I got to see more from them before I'm ready to say, oh, they're a contender in the Big 12. Utah.
They're friendly. It's friendly though. That schedule
I haven't looked at their schedule.
They go to Baylor and host Arizona. So 6-0 is if they are for real, it's a legitimate possibility.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they get to host Oklahoma State on a Friday on prime time, potentially being undefeated.
If they get through Oklahoma State 7-0, then we can have the conversation all day that BYU is a contender in the Big 12. I got no problem with that. I saw last season. I've seen who they've beaten so far. Which outside of Kansas State, their strength of schedule is pretty bad. So I need to see more from BYU. I'm not saying they're bad team. They might be great, but right now I just need to see more. Utah, we knew they were good. They're good. Frankly, right now, the only thing standing in the way between Utah and a 10-2 or better season is Cam Rising. And him staying healthy. If he's healthy, Utah's probably a 10-2, 11-1, 12-0 type of team. If he's not, things get interesting, especially away from Salt Lake City. We'll see how that goes. But does the Big 12 run through Utah? I guess if you believe if you're penciling in Utah as a 1-loss or a 2-loss or better, Big 12 title game participant, then sure. Then I guess it runs through Utah, but not. I don't think it's because BYU is the second contender in the Big 12 as of right now.
It's just the way the schedule sets up. If they do go into that Oklahoma State game at 6-0, win or loss, then they're looking at UCF, which is at this point probably a toss-up, and then they get a long preparation period before Utah. So they get rest before Utah, which is super helpful. They host Kansas. They host Houston.
They get a pretty friendly finish to the season.
And going to Arizona State's not a big deal when it's in late November.
Right.
Which, again, BYU going to Tempe, they're going to have 20,000 fans there.
BYU does have a pretty nice schedule here. I mean, they've got the UCF Utah thing, but in Oklahoma State, I'm not going to bury Oklahoma State like Phil wants to right now.
I'm sorry. It's a 9:15 p.m. Central Time kickoff. Did we not just talk about when games kick off at 6 p.m. or later?
I'm going to defend Oklahoma State from the likes of Phillip Slavin here.
But you know what's not on here? Iowa State is not on this schedule anyway.
They are not.
Nope.
This is charitable. Schedule.
Mike Gundy has given me way too many reasons to believe that they will be a contender at some point. Last year, look at last year. We wrote them off for dead. Like after Iowa State beat them up in Ames, Oklahoma State was left for dead. and then they came back and they're a Big 12 title contender. So Mike Gundy has done this way too many times for me to doubt him at this point. So,
which is also not like, you could be like, that's a good thing, but also the fact that he's done this many times of like, well, we left them for dead and then they rose back up. Maybe don't get left for dead. Maybe
but
just
it's more fun that way. It's so much more fun. No, it's not. It's a tortured existence.
Is it?
But you know what?
I keep blaming my
paying the light bill.
The answer is no. It's not more fun.
Shuts off.
But in the end, if you're playing for a Big 12 title game, do you care how you got there? No, you don't.
Hey, Realtors. On your way to a listing presentation, Zillow Showcase helps you stand out with sellers by putting their listing and your brand in the spotlight on Zillow. With Zillow Showcase, your listings can get prioritized placement, astonishing performance, and exclusivity. Showcase is designed to not exceed 10% of listings in a market. Don't wait to give your business the premium marketing and branding treatment it deserves. Visit showingtimeplus.com/Spotify to get started with Zillow Showcase.
All right. Speaking of Big 12 title game, all right, here's my week 4 hot take. So feel free to old takes exposed to me come December, but this is a week 4 hot take, so it's just for fun. The Big 12 championship game will feature 2 first-time participants. That would be any of the 8 newcomers, Texas Tech, Kansas, and West Virginia. Those would be the teams. The team, and I get it, OSU's technically still in the running. Kansas State's only got 1 loss. The team that gives me the most pause at this point at week 4 about this, Levi, is your Iowa State Cyclones. But I know it's a hot take. It's not that wild, given that this is the Big 12.
So you're saying that
to have to see Utah and UCF playing for a Big 12 championship game in Arlington, Texas. Levi?
So you're it's just that 2 new participants in general, right?
So 2 teams. So since the game came back, like the stat for a while was there were 2
teams that have not been in it. Okay.
2 teams who have not been in the Big 12 championship game in Arlington since it came back. There will be 2 brand new teams this year. So the only way for that to work would be the 8 newcomers, West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Kansas.
To me, your only hope of that is UCF Utah. That is your only possibility for this matchup.
All right, congratulations to the Holy War Big 12 championship game.
I mean, but
that would make back-to-back. If it ends up being UCF Utah, that would mean that they meet in the finale and in the championship.
Yeah, so it'd be. I mean, my own bias aside, I think that's probably unlikely because I think UCF might be. I don't know if they're as real as people say they are right now. I'm not all the way bought in on UCF. I think Utah is a perfectly fine first half of that pick. If it's not UCF, who is it?
BYU is 4-0.
Yeah, they still got to play Utah though. Yeah, I mean,
Cincinnati, Colorado, Texas Tech are all 3-1 and 1-0 in the conference
standings.
With
all of that.
But look, you just said it yourself. Last year, you counted Oklahoma State out for dead at 2-2 to start the season.
Yep.
And then look what happened. And so, that's the whole thing of this is like. Like, I get it. I from where we sit and stand, I get it. It's why I wanted to have this conversation because it does. Sure. It is an opportunity to talk about, like, I think BYU's defense is good and is going to just keep getting better throughout the season.
I'm not
Utah. Who knows?
Yeah,
I like UCF. I get it. I get all of it.
Yeah, I'm not saying UCF can't. I need to see more from UCF. Yeah.
That's fine. They were off this week. We haven't seen them.
I don't think your prediction is like ridiculous.
It's not that hot a take.
It's not. It's really not. Like it's like there's a realistic second team in that group that you can say, okay, sure, I can see that.
Arizona hasn't played a Big 12 game yet.
Yeah,
neither has Iowa State. Like we were like, Arizona got blasted by Kansas State. Yeah, that didn't count towards the Big 12 standings.
It doesn't, but it does. Like, it doesn't count towards the Big 12 standings, but it does help us gauge how good they are relative to everybody else.
Sure. Or, they went and just got blasted by Kansas State because the point of this exercise is I do think that you look across the board at some of the teams that are starting off the year strong, and you look at the top of the conference standings, and it's BYU, Utah, UCF, Cincinnati, Colorado, Texas Tech, and West Virginia are all the teams who are currently sitting here at 1-0 in Big 12 play. Again,
I don't hate
it's
West
week
Virginia.
4. It is week 4. None of that really matters.
Yeah.
But from where we sit right now, it's not crazy. Someone's going to be like, you're an idiot. That's fine. You can call me names all day long. My kids say way meaner things to me than you ever will.
You can't hurt me. Only my kids can hurt me.
They scar me far more than you. So bring it. But like, it's not that crazy to think that, because it's going to happen at some point where you're going to get 2 of the newcomers. And it would be very, very Big 12 for it to happen this year.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah.
I honestly, I don't hate the idea of it. You brought up Oklahoma State being 2-2 last year to start. West Virginia probably should have beat Pitt. They get 2 weeks to prepare to go to Stillwater. And then the brutal part of their schedule is really their next 3 games, but they get to host Iowa State and they get to host Kansas State. If they go 2-1 in those 3 games, and you look at the way their schedule finishes out, all winnable, every single one. And West Virginia's really an anything can happen team. Garrett Green's got some Baker Mayfield energy to him. It would not shock me if the team that made a run based on the adjustments that they get to make from having early failures and actually having the capabilities to do so, West Virginia Mountaineers. If I was putting a long shot bet in, it would be on them.
Now that I'm looking at UCF's schedule, I'm going to count them out. Their schedule is horrible.
Yeah,
their schedule is terrible because they've got for Big 12 anyways. They've got home versus Colorado. Sure, they should win that. They've got home versus Cincinnati. Sure, they've got to go to Iowa State. They've got to play BYU. They got to play Arizona. They got to go to West Virginia. They've got to play against Utah. That's a horrible set of 5 games. Like right now, you're looking at they might win 2 of those, and 3 losses isn't going to get you into Big 12 title game. I mean, I realize that
go to Gainesville.
They still got to go to Gainesville, which that will be a fascinating one to find out. Either is UCF good or is Florida just really bad? And I don't know.
2 things can be true.
2 things can be true. I honestly don't know if that game is going to tell us a damn thing about either team.
I don't.
Short of UCF literally going to Gainesville and winning 70-10. Like, I don't think that game is going to tell us anything about either team.
I like that Ralph mentioned West Virginia, just because when we had Ryan Nani on before the season and we said what would be the funniest Big 12 championship game, we said it would be sending West Virginia from Morgantown and UCF from Orlando to Arlington, Texas to have to win a conference title.
Objectively hilarious.
Conferences don't make no damn sense no more.
West Virginia, Cincinnati, they're like an hour apart, and then just send them to Texas.
Ship him to Arlington, Texas.
Hell yeah!
Not
wait till we play the title game in Allegiant Stadium some year, and it's gonna be West Virginia and UConn. It's gonna be great.
Oh, it's gonna be West. No.
Yeah, imagine that absolute hellscape of a conference.
God.
I already hate
it. Sending BYU to Vegas.
I already hate it. UConn, BYU in Vegas for the Big 12 title game. Kill me now. Give me the meteor.
5 versus 9-4.
Send that meteor right down to earth now.
That's post-apocalypse. Like we're all probably dust. There's really only like 20,000 people left on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those
college football.
I was saying, this is one of those things where you know how like later this fall, Earth's going to get a second moon for a couple months because there's an asteroid that's going to be orbiting Earth. This is what happens when that thing just falls into the gravitational field and just hits the middle of the country, and the only 2 teams standing are BYU and UConn. They're playing for a Big 12 title game.
BYU surrounded by mountains, it saves them.
Yeah.
So that's why they're safe. All right. Let's look at the Week 5 slate. The way this works is you pick the game that is to you the must-watch game. You cannot pick your team. in any of the matchups. Ralph doesn't have to worry about that because Arizona State is off this week. So let's run through the list. 11 a.m. on ESPN, Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Also at 11 a.m., this one on FS1, Baylor hosting BYU. 2:30. By the way, these are all Central Time, God's time, because this is a Central Time conference, despite the fact that the conference's graphics keep posting.
Let's just call it the best time zone for now on. Like,
it's God's time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It covers it.
It's the only time zone
ESPN,
that matters. Everyone else can do math.
Yes. 2:30 p.m. ESPN Plus, Kansas hosting TCU. 2:30 p.m. on Fox, and big noon Saturday will be in attendance for UCF hosting Colorado. Thrilled for UCF to get big noon. That's very fun for them. 6 p.m. on FS1, Houston hosting Iowa State. 7 p.m. on ESPN2, Cincinnati at Texas Tech. And 9:15, you got to love these Big 12 After Dark games. On ESPN, Utah and Arizona. Levi, what's the game, man?
I'm going to say... I don't know. I think I'm going to say... so you got Arizona, Utah. You've got UCF and who? Colorado. And what were the other couple? You got Houston.
Oklahoma State,
Kansas clear State. Answer is Iowa State and Houston. No, I'm just kidding.
But you can't pick that one. Texas Tech, Cincinnati, no. Kansas, TCU, Baylor, BYU, OSU, Kansas State.
I'm going to go OSU, Kansas State because that's clearly the best option here. It's between two contenders, like legit contenders at the top of the Big 12.
One of them will be eliminated.
One of them will be eliminated. Yes, that's very true. The loser of that game is done. And
yeah,
and I don't think it's absolute. Is it in Stillwater?
No, it's in Manhattan.
It's not great for Oklahoma State.
No,
but they do have the chance to eliminate Kansas State and on like martyrdom on the way out for the lose to somebody else, and then take them both out of the title game. But no, I think that's probably the one. One, because I'm a sucker for a good old Big 8 rivalry, and I think it's two teams that have a chance to compete for the Big 12 title thing still. The winner will anyways. So I'm going to go with that one. I'll have an eye on Arizona, Utah, because I don't think Arizona is like a great football team, but they do have Fafita and McMillan, which are one of the best QB wide receiver duos in the country. Might be just dangerous enough to give Utah problems. I don't know. But it would be interesting to see Utah lose a baseball game right now. That would be pretty cool.
Does it count if it's against a Pac-12 team? If it's a Big 12?
Well, this is a historic Big 12 rivalry, so I've learned none of it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Ralph, which game?
Big 12 legend Rob Gronkowski.
As a new guy to the Big 12, I'm gonna talk like one. RJ Harvey has 5 straight games of 120 plus yards rushing, 5 in a row. And over that time, he's over 7 yards a carry. And he gets Colorado on Saturday.
Colorado.
I am going to be a literal bowl of popcorn, sitting crisscross applesauce in front of the big screen, just watching him run. That is my plan for Saturday. Is the will RJ Harvey break the NCAA record for most yards in a single game? That's what I'll be looking at. And I mean, they gave him the ball almost 30 times in his last game, I think. So it's gonna be fun.
The current just for
Samaje Perine, right?
Samaje Perine versus Kansas in 2014, 427 yards.
Remember, that was Kansas back when Kansas was Kansas.
Yeah, 427. So
that was 10 and 70.
You know, if he's getting anywhere near it, like if it's at that like 350 in the third quarter, they're just going to be going,
just do it.
Give him
Who
the ball.
cares?
Give him the ball. Give him the ball. Give him the ball. Oh, the game plan for the rest of the game is,
if there's ever a college football team that you are totally fine with blowing that hell out of the water, it's this one. It's this Colorado team. Most hateable team I've seen in a long time.
He has 30 touches against TCU for 209 yards, and he gets 2 weeks of rest. He has 7 touchdowns in his last 2 games. I cannot wait for this.
Oh, man.
He's good. However, KJ Jefferson, sometimes but.
sometimes, but he also can run the ball.
He can.
And so can Penny Boone. What is the, hold on, now I got to look up, what is NCAA team most rushing yards single game?
Oh, it's got to be 800 something. It's got to be like some like old like Wyoming team.
Oh, I got to find it.
Actually, fun fact, Wyoming used to be an air raid team back in the 90s, but
I do remember that. I do remember that.
I only know that because I started a college football 25 dynasty with Wyoming, and I'm also running the air raid, and it's a good time.
I love
Wyoming,
it. I know that because I'm from there, and
there you go.
Me and 8 other people watched them try to throw the ball into the wind for a few years.
Hell yeah! And I found one. There's a freshman on the roster that's got like 96 speed. Great.
Oh, hey, nice.
I could not tell you the name of the
USC
player.
in 2 years.
Yeah, I could not tell you who it is. That's the key really to winning those college football 25 dynasties early on is you find some like 60 overall wide receiver on the depth chart that's got 49 catching, but he's got 97 speed, and that's all that matters. It's great.
Come on. Okay. I can't just keep sitting here and
spam Louisiana.
I'm trying so hard.
Okay, just set an over-under because 315 yards rushing.
So you're just looking for you're looking for the NCAA team rushing record?
For single game team rushing record, yes. I'm trying to see if I can find. Here we go. Most yards gained.
It's Oklahoma State with
700.
Oklahoma State with 967. No, I'm just kidding.
It's Oklahoma 768 versus Kansas State in 1988. They rushed the ball 72 times.
That sounds about right.
I think UCF can eat that.
And they still might lose.
Okay. I will pick for this weekend. And
pick Iowa State at Houston, you coward.
Boo. It's on FS1.
But it's at 7:00. It's a very convenient time to watch a football game.
It's at 6. It's 6 p.m. So that's really good.
Oh, it is 7 p.m. Eastern. That's right. Yeah.
I just for something different. Like we talked about the list of teams who have lost a game in Big 12 play. Texas Tech and Cincinnati, 7:00, ESPN2 in Lubbock. Like when we started the season, before the season, I said Texas Tech could start the year 5-0 before they end up going to Arizona, because you looked at Washington State with everything they'd lost and replaced, and you're just like, they should win that game. Now, granted, they went and absolutely just laid down on the ground and let Washington State stomp all over them. But now you have a Cincinnati team coming in, and Texas Tech has looked a lot better the last 2 weeks against North Texas and Arizona State. Take North Texas for what they are. I think Arizona State's a solid team. If they can get this win against Cincinnati, if they continue to look like they are improving as a team, like talk about this. It's not who you are at the beginning of the year. It's what you do throughout the year and how you finish. This was like I always said, year 3 was the year we were going to figure out if this was going to work in Lubbock. It's just something to keep an eye on. Like it's one of those games where it's not going to seem like it's that significant of a game right now, and then you turn around come November, and one of these two teams is sitting here still trying to vie for a bid into Arlington. So, like I think it's a sneaky, interesting game. It's a very under the radar. No one's going to have this one circled outside of Cincinnati and Lubbock, Texas, as far as games to watch this weekend. But it could be. It could. I mean, it's part of why we had this conversation. Like that. This is the Big 12, y'all. It could be, and it could be a close game and a fun game. So again, Brendan Sorsby hasn't thrown an interception so far this season, so something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Shout out former Iowa State linebackers coach and current Cincinnati defensive coordinator Tyson Veit. So
there you go.
A subtle root for him.
I mean, I root for him. I still think that Cincinnati's head coaching hire was a bad one.
Not
but
great,
anywho,
yeah.
All right. You guys have been awesome. I appreciate you hopping on tonight and filling in. Levi, you have been great as always. I appreciate you. You know F-bombs, and you didn't give me any 25-minute answers. So this is like the best appearance you ever had on this show.
What a fucking disaster for me.
There it was. There. And now I got to change the rating on the. All right, Levi, where can everybody check out all the stuff you do talking Iowa State, man?
That's all on Wide Right Natty Light. Twitter, Wide RT Natty LT. We got YouTube, Discord, Twitch, but kind of Twitch, but YouTube, Discord, I don't know. Wherever you think you can find us, you can probably find us.
There's a 1012 network channel in the Wide Right
there is.
Natty Light Discord. And I do my best to stay active in it as much as I can.
The Discord's got like
If you wanna
1,100
know-
people in it too. It's a very, very active Discord community. It's a good time. Even for non-Iowa State fans, it's a good time. There's a lot of good stuff
Yep.
for everybody.
There's a lot of 10-12 hosts in there. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time. Ralph, like I feel like you do like 100 different things in relation to Arizona State. So can you plug all of them?
I just the forecast. That's I tweet. That's all I do. But no, the forecast on your network. I appreciate you having me. We're gonna be trying to convince ASU fans not to jump off a bridge into Tempe Town Lake. That's gonna be the mission.
Is Tempe
this
Town Lake a
week.
real thing? Is that a real lake?
Yeah, it's not real, but it is real.
So here's
It's-
what we got to do. When Arizona State comes up and plays in Iowa State, you got to jump in Lake Laverne. Then when we go down to play at Arizona State, I'll jump in that lake in Tempe.
I would love for you to Google.
Will I get
Tempe-
tetanus?
I don't think so, but I would love for you to Google Tempe Town Lake alligator.
Don't
'Cause
even
it's a-
care. I'll fight it. Whatever.
It's a fake lake, and it's got inflatables around the outside. And one year they burst, and the lake flooded out into the town, and all of the fish were there dead. So they brought in alligators to eat the fish. I think the alligators are gone now, but I have not gone in since.
I don't care. That's fine. I'm not scared of this alligator. That's fine. Give me a couple beers. We'll go and we'll have a good time.
Well,
I'll have that gator upside down shotgun and bush lights for it within an hour.
No, we're just gonna be talking about the fact that it's gonna be okay. We're trying to win 6 games this year anyway, so don't abandon hope quite yet.
There you go.
You also have your Twitter Spaces each week that are fantastic. I've hopped in and listened to a few of those as well. So
Extraordinarily
anyway.
civil Twitter space. It's very like past the talking stick community meeting. It's been going on for like 4 or 5 years. We constantly every single week we get fans of our next opponent jumping in ready to fight, and it's just so kind and warm in there. It's a funny. It's maybe not what you would associate.
You
with
Pac-12
Arizona
guys.
State.
You Pac-12 and your warm fuzzy football talk. What the hell is this?
Hey, we just
Unserious football conference.
we don't have a lot of warm and fuzzies for other Pac-12 schools, but so far the Big 12 has been nice to us.
You'll learn to hate everybody just like we do.
Well, the response from fans for it, like all the Utah fans, like they're happy because they won. But even before the game, I saw a ton of, and some of the most just like Utah accounts be like, Stillwater's great. People are nice. Like, chili, the cheese fries at Joe's are awesome. Like, and it was just like, yes, congratulations, welcome to what actually going to college football games on a Saturday is like. Not like when you go to USC.
Turns out it's more fun to go to these college towns than to just call them fly over to our the gas station the truck stop conference, whatever.
Truck stop conference.
Go to Stillwater, go to Ames, go to Manhattan. I guarantee you will have a good time.
Yes. Utah fans aren't really. First of all, Utah fans in person and Utah fans online, biggest disconnect in the world. And
you're met Kansas State fans.
I got a few in the Rivals network that seems to be really heavy on the Kansas State alums.
Sorry to hear that.
But the thing with Utah fans is like they have a great environment, and they were part of the Mountain West for such a long time that they're actually used to what they're going to see in the Big 12 a lot more than having to go to Seattle or having to go to LA. And as many people in Salt Lake that are trying to make Salt Lake the new Seattle or new LA, it's just not. There's like 200,000 people there. It's not this giant mega conglomerate. It still has a super small town feel. And so I think the people that get a chance to travel out to Salt Lake will enjoy it. And I know you'll like their fans too. They're just a bunch of Wasatch Brewery, polygamy porter drinking. They're good folks. They are. Just online, it's like it's their first day on the internet every day.
I tell you, I've not met a more blindly confident group of people than those guys. Other than, that's it's. I don't know. See what blows my mind about Utah fans is they were in the conference for 45 seconds and they were all just double burden everybody on the internet. It's like I don't know.
It's
You guys,
it's because they got invited into a house that BYU was already in.
Yep.
Yeah,
That is what everyone has said.
I mean,
it's because BYU is already here, and so they're mad.
like, I'm sorry, you guys shared a conference with Colorado State in the same decade. I don't know what to tell you, but you're like, this is a different thing. You're not gonna just get a beat Oregon State's ass every week. That's just not how this works. Like, we play football in the middle of the country too. It's fun.
I don't know. So I posted this week. I was like, man, Utah, mediocre road team, and if they're gonna be out here doing what they just did in Stillwater, this conference might be a wrap. And I had like 20 Utah fans in my mentions. I had just said, oh my God, they're gonna kill this whole conference. And the Utah fans in my mentions were like, mediocre road team? Screw you. I'm like, wait. First of all, numbers back that up.
Write it down. Utah fans have more faith in Oklahoma State than Phil Slavin. It's
fine.
Everybody else is a bigger Oklahoma State fan than Phil.
That's fine. I've been here long enough. Okay. Yeah.
But isn't that the most college football thing ever, to trash everybody else, and then as soon as you beat a team, you're their biggest fan? They're 2019 LSU. What are you talking about? How it works.
You guys have been awesome. I appreciate it. Everybody, we will be back to make picks on Thursday. We will talk to you all then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
With the $5 meal deal at McDonald's, 5 hits different. 5 gets you a McDouble or a McChicken and a small fry and a small drink and a 4-piece McNuggets. 5 gets you more at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary for limited time only.